I want to bring in Hugh Hewitt now, conservative commentator and national syndicated radio talk show host. Hugh, nice to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be here, Kate. Thanks for having me.
Do you agree with what you just heard from Reince Priebus, that voters don't care?
I did have Reince on the show, my radio show this morning, and I agree with him that this campaign is so fundamentally different, it's hard to gauge who cares what about anything. There's a great book out there. It's probably the most important business book of the last 20 years by Clayton Christensen at Harvard Business School, called The Innovator's Dilemma. And it talks about the fact that sometimes customers are overwhelmed by disruptive innovators. Donald Trump is that. He's disruptive. Everything about this cycle. And media has trouble. President Obama has trouble. Hillary Clinton has trouble figuring out what to do with him, just as all of his Republican would-be opponents had trouble dealing with him throughout the primary. So I'm in agreement with Chairman Priebus that it is very difficult to understand what the electorate wants. But I will tell you, I got off of a plane in Cleveland 2 days ago to go give a commencement address, and a senior executive with a big Ohio company came over to tell me, you know, I'm with Trump, my wife is with Trump, don't you talk down to we Trump people. We know exactly what we want. We want an earthquake.
But what does the party want, right? Because Trump has this record high disapproval rating. You're well aware of this. He's 65% disapproval. Clinton, by the way, also very high, 56% disapproval. That's according to our NBC Wall Street Journal poll. So what does the party want him to do when it comes to his personal affairs?
Well, let me answer that in two ways. What I want to know is who he's going to put on the Supreme Court. I do want to see his tax returns, and I want to know how he's going to rebuild the Navy. But I think what the party faithful want is someone who will take it to Hillary Clinton. You know, I'm using the shorthand. Every liberal really seems so sad. E is for Egypt, R is for the Russian reset button, L is for Libya, which is a mess. S is for Syria, S is for the status of forces agreement that Secretary of Clinton blew in Iraq that lost the peace, and S is for her server, which is going to lead to an indictment of somebody, if not her. So I think what Trump promises, that does get a lot of people very excited, is a no-holds-barred, take it to the Clintons campaign. And by the way, President Obama's very divisive remarks at Rutgers yesterday is an attempt to turn the page from his failure, as put out in Jeffrey Goldberg's Atlantic piece, in the New York Times piece on Ben Rhodes. He loves to talk about Trump because every time he tries to talk about his foreign policy, it ends up being a disaster. So I do think there's a part of the party faithful that says, go Donald, just turn the table over on media elites and Democratic Party strategists, just like you did on the Republican Party.
Well, there's also an argument being made, though, that this election has become about Trump as opposed to being about President Obama's legacy. I mean, normally when you have a two-term Democrat, everybody would be trying to tear down Obama in order to win back the White House for Republicans, but instead we're all focused on Donald Trump.
Well, you know, that depends on where you look. Barbara Boxer presented herself as Hillary's representative at the Nevada convention over the weekend. She was lustily and lengthily booed by the Sanders people till she got angry and told the Sanders people to go home. The Democratic Party is melting down. Right now, media loves to focus on Donald Trump because he's a bigger and better story, and Hillary Clinton is a god-awful candidate. She's dreadful. But it is a referendum on Egypt, on Libya, which is an ISIS colony, on Russia, which has taken over Ukraine, on the loss of Iraq, on Syria's disaster, and of course on the server, which was illegal and, as I said, will lead to an indictment. So there's plenty of time, and the New York Times is trying to get a few digs in. But on this network this morning, Donnie Deutsch brought up on Morning Joe Jeffrey Epstein. And if you're going to start talking about Donald Trump, as the New York Times did, and his history of being a playboy with women, you're going to end up with Bill Clinton flying around on Jeffrey Epstein's jet. And so I'm looking forward to this campaign only as one of the most unpredictable. I haven't signed on with Trump. He's got to do some stuff for me that I want to hear about the Supreme Court and about the Navy.
Well, I was wondering when you had the acronym already, if you'd already gotten some
I've been
briefings.
using that acronym about Hillary for a long time, Kate.
Okay. Well, let me quote from what Donald Trump told the New York Times today about his plans. He says he plans to throw Bill Clinton's infidelities in Hillary Clinton's face on live television during the presidential debates this fall, questioning whether she enabled his behavior and sought to discredit the women involved. So is Trump on the right track here, or would you rather he not be going down that lane at all and sticking to policy?
Well, he's shaping the battlefield. As they say in the Pentagon, you want to make sure the battlefield is shaped. I think he has to worry about Secretary Clinton refusing to debate like Richard Nixon did in 1972. It's advice that I gave her in a book 2 years ago entitled The Queen. I wouldn't get near some of these Republicans, and maybe one of them is Donald Trump, on a debate stage and simply say it's beneath the dignity of the presidential campaign. I wouldn't be surprised to see that out of Secretary Clinton. because he is unpredictable. But if the New York Times is going to run these stories, or Secretary Clinton is going to bring up men going off the reservation or attack him as being anti-woman, Donald Trump is going to push back hard, not just on the Clinton legacy during the White House years of all that sordid series of affairs, but everything that has happened since. And that will be grimy and low. And it's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about replacing Antonin Scalia with Senator Mike Lee. I want to talk about getting back to 350 ships in the Navy. But if, in fact, that's where Hillary goes, Donald will go there just as hard.
Why do you think he laid it all out in an interview with the New York Times? I mean, it seems unusual because he's a guy who commonly says, I'm not going to tell you my foreign policy strategy because I want it to be a surprise. And yet he talks to the New York Times and lays out this strategy against Clinton. Why do you think he did that?
You're absolutely right. He does say he wants to be a surpriser on the international scene vis-a-vis the People's Republic and Russia. But what he's doing in this political campaign, I go back to the Christensen book, which is innovators disrupt everything. They turn the tables over and they force you, they force me on my radio show, you on your television show, all of the networks to react as they've never reacted before. It got him $2 billion worth of free television time. It makes him the best interview in America. And before long, watch for this, Ivanka Trump is going to start accompanying her father everywhere and talking about her father. She is his secret weapon and has been from the beginning of this campaign. So it's going to be a surprise a day. He wants to juice up the convention. I don't know what that means. And I will look for a vice presidential pick, which surprises as well. And I'm hoping somebody young, maybe Tom Cotton from Arkansas, maybe Joni Ernst from Iowa, maybe Dan Sullivan from Alaska, all combat warriors who can talk about national security. Lots of surprises ahead.
And I was just going to say, with all those surprises, you don't worry that he opens a Pandora's box, and lots of surprises will come from the other side, too.
You know, Hillary Clinton is not very good at surprising. She never surprised one of our foreign adversaries. That's why Syria is a disaster and a genocide, and why Libya is an ISIS colony. So I don't think we'd say surprising in Hillary Clinton. She's running a blocking and tackling Woody Hayes campaign. Maybe that will win. It's done not so well against Bernie Sanders. She's lost 20 states against Bernie Sanders. At least one more tomorrow night, maybe two in Kentucky and Oregon. We'll wait and see. But thus far, she hasn't impressed with her ability to move quickly or unexpectedly in any new direction.
Hugh Hewitt, always nice to have your perspective. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Kate.